Though the lost treasures of the Roman Empire are still missing, we are embarking on a journey to uncover history's greatest vanished fortunes, from the lost soul of a slaughtered legion to an emperor's crown swallowed by the desert. By the end, you will know the full list of legendary riches waiting for discovery. We will explore why a single golden eagle could rewrite history, and what happened to a queen's priceless dissolved pearl. Which of these forgotten wonders captures your imagination most? Deep in the mud of the Teutoburg forest, the soul of Rome was lost. This story begins not with gold or jewels, but with a symbol so powerful, its disappearance echoed for centuries. We are searching for the legendary eagle standards of the 17th, 18th, and 19th legions. To understand why finding one would be priceless, you must first understand what an eagle meant to a Roman soldier. This was not merely a flag or a piece of military regalia. The aquila was the beating heart of a legion, a sacred object blessed by the gods. It was the focal point for their oaths, their courage in battle, and their very identity. To lose it was the ultimate disgrace, a shame so profound that a legion could be disbanded for such a failure. And in the year 9, 3 eagles were lost in a single, catastrophic event. The man responsible was Arminius, a Germanic chieftain who had been raised in Rome, earning citizenship and military rank. He used this insider knowledge to orchestrate the perfect trap. He lured the arrogant provincial governor Varius and his 3 legions, totaling perhaps 20,000 men, into the dense, unfamiliar woods. For 3 days, a relentless storm of Germanic warriors ambushed the stretched-out Roman column. The terrain was a nightmare, a boggy killing ground where Roman discipline and formation crumbled. It was a complete massacre. The news of the annihilation shattered Emperor Augustus, who, according to ancient historians, would wander his palace, beating his head against the walls and crying, "Quintilius Varus, give me back my legions." The eagles were captured as trophies, and their recovery became an obsession for Rome. Future emperors launched campaigns not just for conquest, but specifically to reclaim these lost symbols of honor. While the general location of the battle, near modern-day Kalkris in Germany, is known, the eagles themselves have never been found. Archaeologists have spent decades combing the region, unearthing fragments of Roman armor, coins, and even the grim evidence of a mass grave. Yet the ultimate prize, one of those gilded bronze eagles, remains elusive. To hold such an object today would be to hold the very soul of a vanquished army, a direct link to one of the most pivotal and dramatic defeats in ancient history. The disgrace of a lost eagle was profound, but the capture of an emperor was unthinkable. In the year 260, the Roman world received a shock that shook its very foundations. Emperor Valerian, the very man who embodied the power of Rome, was taken prisoner by the Sasanian Persian king, Shapur I. This was not a death in battle, which was tragic but honorable. This was a living emperor paraded in chains, a permanent, humiliating trophy for his enemies, and with him vanished the ultimate symbols of his office, the imperial regalia. Picture a solid gold crown, not a simple circlet but a heavy, ornate piece inset with rare gems from across the empire. Envision the scepter he would have carried, topped with a massive eagle, its wings spread as if in flight. And then there was the sword, a ceremonial masterpiece, its hilt and scabbard glittering with jewels, a weapon meant to display authority, not for combat. These objects represented the empire itself, and their loss was a catastrophic blow to Roman prestige. Valerian's fate in captivity remains one of history's most haunting mysteries. Ancient sources, often hostile, claimed he was used as a human footstool for the Persian king, and that after his death, his skin was stripped, dyed, and displayed in a temple as a permanent reminder of Persian victory. Whether these gruesome tales are entirely true or powerful propaganda, they underscore the depth of the humiliation. So what happened to his magnificent regalia? The most compelling theory is that Shapur I took these treasures back to his magnificent capital, Ctesiphon, as the ultimate spoils of war. They would have been displayed to proclaim his triumph over the Western Empire. This means the crown, the scepter, and the sword likely ended up in the vast royal treasuries of the Sasanian Empire, a hoard of unimaginable wealth. Today, the ruins of Ctesiphon lie in modern-day Iraq. a site of immense archaeological potential. Is it possible that the imperial regalia of Emperor Valerian remains buried there, hidden beneath centuries of sand and debris, waiting for a stroke of luck to reveal the ultimate symbol of a fallen emperor? Or were these treasures dispersed in later centuries, looted during other wars, and now lying unrecognized in a private collection or a forgotten corner of a museum? To find even one piece would be to reclaim a fragment of Rome's most profound shame. While the loss of an emperor's regalia was a political catastrophe, the disappearance of a masterpiece can feel like a theft from history itself. Among the most lamented vanished artworks is the Great Cameo of Constantine. Envision a single piece of layered sardonyx stone, as large as a dinner plate, carved with breathtaking skill into a complex scene of the emperor and his family. This was not mere jewelry, it was a monumental declaration of power carved in gemstone. Such imperial cameos were the blockbuster propaganda films of their day, designed to be seen by the elite and to project an image of a stable, God-blessed dynasty. The Great Cameo would have depicted Constantine, the first Christian emperor, not just as a ruler, but as a figure of divine favor, surrounded by symbols of victory and harmony. Its sheer scale and craftsmanship would have made it one of the most valuable portable objects in the entire empire, a treasure among treasures. Then came the sack of Rome in the 5th century. As the Vandals swept through the city, plundering its wealth, this incredible object vanished from the historical record. So where did it go? One possibility is that it was carried off to North Africa as part of the Vandal King Gaisaric's legendary hoard, only to be lost again when his own kingdom fell. Another, more hopeful theory suggests it was hidden away for safekeeping, perhaps within the walls of a church or a private villa, where it still rests, waiting. A darker fate is that it was broken apart, its exquisite carvings ground into powder for medicines or its stone simply reused for smaller, less significant pieces of jewelry. We can look to surviving cameos, like the magnificent Gemma Augustea in Vienna, to understand what was lost. That smaller cameo glorifies the Emperor Augustus, and if Constantine's cameo was even grander, its loss is a profound void in our understanding of Roman art. To find it would be to recover a chapter of imperial history written not in ink, but in light and shadow on stone. High atop the Capitoline Hill, the Temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus was not just a building, it was the spiritual anchor of the entire Roman world. This was the house of the King of the Gods, and its scale was meant to inspire awe and fear. But its most legendary feature was not its massive statues or its vast interior, but its roof. The original temple was said to be sheathed in gilded bronze tiles, a dazzling blanket of metal that caught the sun. From anywhere in the city, a glance upward would reveal a rooftop that seemed to be made of solid fire, a visible reminder of Rome's divine favor and its boundless wealth. That roof was more than decoration, it was a statement written in light, proclaiming that this city was the center of the universe. Then came the fire. In the year 83 before the Common Era, a devastating blaze consumed the ancient temple, reducing this symbol of Roman power to smoldering ruins. The loss was catastrophic, not just structurally but spiritually. The temple was eventually rebuilt, grander than before, but the original gilded roof was lost to history. This presents a tantalizing mystery. What happened to that immense quantity of precious metal? A roof of that size would have required thousands of gilded bronze tiles. Did they melt in the inferno, pooling into a strange, golden river of slag that was then buried under the new construction? It is possible that fragments of those tiles still lie deep beneath the soil of the Capitoline Hill, waiting for an archaeologist's trowel to uncover a shimmering piece of the past. Another, more pragmatic theory suggests the metal was salvaged and repurposed. Rome was no stranger to financial crises, and the state treasury often resorted to melting down sacred objects to mint new coinage. It is a compelling thought that the gold from the roof of Jupiter himself might have been converted into everyday coins, circulating through the hands of merchants and soldiers, its divine origin completely forgotten. The idea that we might walk past a modern building standing on a fortune in gilded history, or that the change in an ancient Roman's pocket once gleamed from the city's highest point, connects us to a past where even the gods were not safe from the demands of an empire. Even the most extravagant Roman treasure could not compete with the audacious wealth of a queen. The story of Cleopatra's pearl earring is a legend of such staggering excess that it has captivated historians for 2,000 years. Our source is the Roman writer Pliny the Elder, who recounts a famous wager between Cleopatra and the Roman general Mark Antony. Antony, boasting about his limitless resources, claimed he could host a single meal costing 10 million sesterces. Unimpressed, Cleopatra accepted the challenge, promising she would spend double that amount on one feast. The day of the banquet arrived, and Antony was served a fine but reasonably priced meal. He began to mock the queen, questioning how she could possibly win the bet. Then Cleopatra made her move. She removed one of her two enormous pearl earrings, each one said to be worth the fortune of an entire kingdom, and dropped it into a cup of strong vinegar. The acidic liquid slowly dissolved the priceless gem. Once the pearl had completely vanished, she drank the entire concoction, consuming a king's ransom in a single, shocking gulp. She was declared the winner without question. Historians have long debated the scientific plausibility of this story. Could vinegar, which is a weak acid, actually dissolve a pearl so quickly? Some suggest she may have used a different, more potent chemical, or that the pearl was first crushed into a fine powder. Others argue the entire tale is a fiction, a piece of Roman propaganda designed to paint Cleopatra as dangerously decadent and foreign. But if we accept that the core of the story is true, a fascinating question remains. What happened to the other earring? The pair was famously unmatched, so its solitary existence would have made it a unique artifact of incredible value. When Cleopatra and Antony were defeated by Octavian, the future Emperor Augustus, he seized all of her royal possessions and brought them back to Rome. It is entirely possible that the surviving pearl was among that hoard, displayed in a temple as a symbol of Roman victory over Eastern extravagance. This leads to its potential resting place. Could the remaining pearl have been lost during the many sacks of Rome, looted by Vandals or Goths who had no idea of its legendary history? Perhaps it was stored in the Roman treasury until the building was ransacked, the pearl slipping away into the hands of a soldier who saw it only as a valuable gem, not as half of the most expensive drink in history. To find it would be to hold the sole companion to a myth, a tangible piece of one of antiquity's most dramatic tales of wealth and power. A queen's dissolved pearl speaks of fleeting wealth, but what about riches of the mind that were lost forever? On the Palatine Hill, the very heart of imperial power, stood libraries that housed the accumulated knowledge of the ancient world. These were not just collections of scrolls, but repositories of unique histories, entire plays by Greek masters like Sophocles and Aeschylus that we only know by title today, and philosophical texts that could reshape our understanding of classical thought. The imperial libraries were a treasure of a different kind, where the value was measured in ideas, not in gold. The destruction of this knowledge was not a single event, but a slow, agonizing death by 1,000 cuts. The Great Fire of Rome under Nero likely caused severe damage. Later, the sacks of Rome by the Visigoths and the Vandals in the 5th century targeted portable wealth. But in the chaos, priceless scrolls would have been burned for warmth or simply left to rot. The gradual decay of the empire itself meant that fewer and fewer people had the resources or the will to preserve these fragile papyri. The collective memory of a civilization was fading page by page. Yet there is a glimmer of hope that not everything was lost. Could a portion of the Palatine Library have been sealed away for safekeeping? The Romans were master engineers, and the hills of Rome are riddled with forgotten underground chambers and tunnels. It is conceivable that during a time of crisis, a loyal custodian walled up a storage room, a time capsule of knowledge meant to be reopened in a more peaceful time that never came. An even more tantalizing possibility lies outside the city walls. We know from the spectacular discovery of the Villa of the Papyri in Herculaneum that wealthy Romans maintained private libraries in their country villas. When Mount Vesuvius erupted, that villa was buried in superheated gas and ash, which carbonized its hundreds of scrolls, paradoxically preserving them for centuries. Is it possible that an emperor, fearing the instability in Rome, transferred a collection of the finest works from the Palatine to a secluded villa? a place that was then lost to time or buried by a natural disaster. The idea that a sister library to the Palatine's collection could lie preserved under the Italian countryside, its scrolls waiting for a technology that can finally unroll and read them, is a dream that drives archaeologists to this day. To recover even a single scroll from that lost hoard would be like hearing a voice from the ancient world speak for the first time in 2,000 years. The whispers of lost libraries are overshadowed by the thunder of a conquering army marching away from a plundered city. The year was 410, and for the first time in 8 centuries, the city of Rome had been breached by a foreign enemy. The Visigoths, led by their brilliant and ambitious king Alaric, poured through the gates. For 3 days they sacked the Eternal City, loading their wagons with wealth accumulated over a millennium. They took everything, gold and silver from the temples, precious statues, silks, and most tantalizing of all, according to some accounts, the legendary treasures looted from the Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem, which had been brought to Rome centuries earlier. This was not just a hoard of riches, it was the condensed history of the ancient world, all now in the hands of a migrating tribe. Alaric and his people, now impossibly wealthy, did not stay. They moved south, aiming for the coast of North Africa, a new land for their kingdom. But fate had other plans. In the region of Calabria, in southern Italy, Alaric suddenly fell ill and died. His death created an immediate and profound crisis. How do you bury a king who commands the greatest treasure of the age? The Goths were in hostile territory, and they knew that if his resting place was discovered, it would be desecrated and the treasure stolen. So they devised a plan of legendary ingenuity and brutality. They forced Roman captives to divert the entire flow of the Busento River. In the damp riverbed, they constructed a tomb fit for a conqueror. They laid Alaric to rest, along with a king's ransom in treasure, his war horse, and, according to the ancient historian Jordanes, the captives who had built the tomb were then killed to ensure the secret died with them. The river was then returned to its course, forever sealing the king and his plunder in a watery grave. For centuries, this story has drawn treasure hunters and historians to the rivers of Calabria, primarily the Busento and the nearby Crati. The challenge is immense. Riverbeds are not static. They shift and change over centuries. The original course of the Busento in the 5th century is likely very different from its path today. Sifting through meters of silt and gravel, with the constant threat of water infiltration, makes traditional archaeology nearly impossible. Modern technology offers some hope. Ground-penetrating radar can map subsurface structures, and magnetometers can detect large concentrations of metal. Yet, even these tools are challenged by the deep, waterlogged environment and the sheer scale of the search area. Finding the tomb of Alaric is the ultimate needle in a haystack quest, but the prize is unparalleled. A sealed vault containing not just Visigoth gold, but the very spoils of Rome, and perhaps the lost treasures of Solomon's temple, all hidden beneath the gentle flow of an Italian river. While the Goths carried away the plunder of Rome, one treasure within that hoard held a significance far beyond its golden weight. The sacred treasures from the temple in Jerusalem, paraded through Rome's streets centuries before, represented a spiritual conquest. After crushing a Jewish revolt in the year 70, the Emperor Titus returned to Rome in triumph. His procession, immortalized on the Arch of Titus that still stands today, displayed the spoils for all to see. There was the solid gold menorah, a 7-branched lampstand that was the very symbol of divine presence. They carried the golden table of the shewbread, which held 12 sacred loaves, and the silver trumpets blown during religious rites. These were not mere trophies of war, they were the heart of a faith, ripped from their home and installed in Rome's own Temple of Peace. For nearly 400 years, these objects remained in the city, a permanent reminder of Roman power. Then, they simply vanished from all historical records. So what was the fate of Jerusalem's most holy relics? The most widely accepted theory points to the Vandal sack of Rome in the year 455. When King Gaisaric's forces looted the city, they took everything of value that was not nailed down. It is highly probable the temple treasures were on their list, loaded onto ships and transported to the Vandal capital of Carthage in North Africa. If so, their trail likely goes cold there. perhaps lost when Carthage itself was sacked by the Byzantines a century later. But another, more romantic possibility endures. Could the treasures have never left Rome at all? Perhaps a pious emperor, or a savvy official, secretly had them removed from the public temple and sealed in a secure underground chamber for safekeeping, a hiding place so effective it was forgotten over time. The city is a labyrinth of forgotten tunnels and sealed chambers, and the idea that these sacred objects rest beneath modern Rome is a powerful lure for treasure hunters. A third, dramatic theory suggests they were lost at sea. If the Vandals did indeed take them to Carthage, any subsequent attempt to move them, perhaps to Constantinople or another safe haven, could have ended in a shipwreck. The Mediterranean floor is a vast museum of lost history, and the golden menorah could be lying encrusted in sand, its form unrecognizable after centuries in the deep. Finding any piece of this sacred collection would be a discovery of unimaginable historical and religious importance, a direct link to one of the ancient world's most pivotal moments. Another treasure that vanished with Rome's decline was a cup of pure legend. The Sardonyx cup of the Ptolemies was a masterpiece of the gem cutter's art, carved from a single, flawless piece of sardonyx. This was no ordinary drinking vessel, but a royal heirloom from the court of Cleopatra herself, a breathtaking fusion of Egyptian and Greek artistry. Its surface was a landscape of carved gods and goddesses, the layers of the stone skillfully used to create figures in stunning relief against a contrasting background. Owning such an object was a statement of power, taste, and a connection to the ancient dynasties of the East. After Cleopatra's defeat, this priceless cup, like so many of her treasures, was taken to Rome. It likely passed through the hands of emperors, displayed in the imperial palaces as a trophy and a testament to Rome's conquest of a fabled kingdom. For centuries, it was a star item in the private collections of the Caesars, a tangible piece of a queen's legendary wealth. Then, in the chaotic 3rd century, as the empire fractured under civil war and barbarian incursions, the cup disappears from all records. What became of it? In the turmoil, an emperor on the run may have ordered a hoard of his most precious items to be buried for safekeeping, a secret that died with him on the battlefield. Alternatively, a marauding band of Goths or Vandals, storming a palace, could have seized the cup as simple booty. To them, it was just a beautiful, heavy cup, its historical significance completely lost. They might have melted it down for its precious metal fittings or traded it for supplies, the ultimate insult for an object of such refined beauty. The idea that this Ptolemaic masterpiece could be sitting in a forgotten corner of a European museum, mislabeled as a simple ancient vessel, or lying at the bottom of a river where a looted wagon foundered, is a haunting possibility. Its recovery would reunite us with the personal splendor of Cleopatra's world, a world Rome was so desperate to possess and then so carelessly lost. The diadem was no longer a laurel wreath of military victory, but a closed band of gold and gems, a circle of absolute authority. This jeweled headband became the definitive symbol of an emperor's power in the empire's final centuries, a stark declaration of monarchy. The final Western emperor to wear one was a boy with a weighty name, Romulus Augustulus. His name echoed both the founder of Rome and its first emperor, yet his reign was a hollow echo of that glorious past. In the year 476, the Germanic general Odoacer simply deposed him. There was no grand battle, no dramatic assassination, just a quiet end to 500 years of imperial tradition. And with that quiet end, the last Western imperial diadem vanished. So what became of this ultimate object? Odoacer, a pragmatic ruler, did not declare himself a new Caesar. Instead, he sent the imperial regalia to the Eastern Emperor in Constantinople, acknowledging his theoretical overlordship. But did this shipment include the diadem? Ancient sources are frustratingly vague. It is possible the crown was indeed sent east, only to be lost centuries later when Constantinople itself was sacked by crusaders in the year 1204, its vast treasuries looted and dispersed across Europe. Another theory suggests Odoacer or his men melted it down immediately. The value of the gold and gems was immense, and the symbolic power of the object was a potential threat. Destroying it was a final, definitive act, proving that the Western Empire was truly finished. But perhaps the most compelling idea is that loyal Roman courtiers managed to hide it. Could they have smuggled the diadem away from the palace in Ravenna, stashing it in a lead-lined chest and burying it in an unmarked spot, hoping for a restoration that never came? To find this single object would be to hold the very end of an era in your hands. It represents not just lost wealth, but the final, silent moment when the light of the Western Roman Empire was extinguished forever. The fall of the Western Empire was built upon mountains of gold that Rome itself had conquered. One of the greatest influxes of wealth in its history came from the rugged mountains of Dacia, a kingdom corresponding to modern-day Romania. After two brutal wars in the early 2nd century, Emperor Trajan emerged victorious, and the spoils were staggering. Ancient historians record that he brought back over 500,000 pounds of gold and 1 million pounds of silver, a haul so immense it funded his massive public building projects across the empire and even allowed him to lower taxes for Roman citizens. This story of conquest is carved in stone on Trajan's column in Rome, a spiraling comic strip of military triumph. But the column, for all its detail, leaves out the most crucial part of the story, the source. The exact locations of the most productive Dacian gold mines became one of the empire's most closely guarded state secrets. The Romans were not just after the existing gold. They wanted to control the supply for generations to come. They industrialized mining in the region, particularly around the area known today as Roja, Montana, using advanced technology and slave labor to tear precious metal from the earth on an unprecedented scale. This leads to a tantalizing possibility. In such a vast and rugged landscape, could the Romans have sealed off a particularly rich vein or even an entire mine for strategic reasons? Imagine a tunnel, its entrance deliberately collapsed and hidden, meant to be a strategic reserve for the empire in a future time of crisis. That crisis came, of course, but the knowledge of how to find that specific reserve may have died with the administrators who oversaw the region as the empire crumbled. The modern Roja, Montana area is still known for its gold deposits, and modern mining companies have fought legal battles for the right to extract it. But their efforts focus on what is geologically apparent. A lost Roman mine would not be on any modern map. It would be a ghost in the mountain, a sealed chamber that could contain not just untouched veins of gold, but perhaps even a hidden stockpile of refined ingots, a rainy day fund for an empire that ran out of days. Finding it would require more than just geology. It would demand deciphering the lost geography of a Roman secret service. Beneath the calm surface of the Mediterranean lies a graveyard of forgotten fortunes. The Roman Empire was a maritime giant, its lifeblood flowing across the sea in thousands of wooden ships. Every year, countless vessels embarked on perilous journeys, connecting the provinces to the capital, and their holds were often stuffed with unimaginable wealth. Think of the imperial tax ships, heavy with silver and gold coins freshly minted from provincial mints, sent to fill the treasury in Rome. Picture the specialized cargo ships, their hulls packed with priceless white marble from quarries in Greece and Turkey, destined to become the columns and statues of a new forum or a triumphant arch. Then there were the merchant galleys from the east, carrying silk from China, spices from India, and exotic gems, all for the luxurious tastes of the Roman elite. A single storm, a hidden reef, or a moment of navigational error could send one of these treasure ships to the bottom in minutes, taking its cargo into the silent, dark world of the deep. The sheer scale of this maritime trade means the Mediterranean seafloor is a scattered museum of Roman commerce. Modern technology has given us the eyes to see into this darkness. Side-scan sonar can map vast stretches of the seabed, revealing the distinct outlines of a shipwreck buried in silt. But the most extraordinary discoveries come from the anoxic, oxygen-free depths of the Black Sea. In these deep water tombs, wood does not rot and organic materials are preserved with stunning clarity. It is here that archaeologists have found Roman ships sitting perfectly upright on the bottom, their masts still standing and their decks eerily intact. The potential is staggering. Imagine finding one of those tax ships, its sealed amphory not filled with wine, but with solid gold coins, each one representing the sweat and toil of an entire province. Or discovering a marble carrier, its main hold still stacked with pristine, uncarved blocks of stone, ready for a sculptor's chisel that never arrived. To open such a time capsule would be to freeze a single moment of Roman economic life, a snapshot of the empire's pulse, forever suspended in the cold, still water. The art of imperial propaganda reached its peak not on canvas, but in gemstone. We know of the magnificent Gemma Augustea, a great cameo glorifying the Emperor Augustus that now resides in a Vienna museum. But whispers from the ancient world suggest this masterpiece may not have been alone. What if an even larger, more intricate companion piece once existed, a twin that has since vanished from history? This lost sibling, a hypothetical Gemma Augustea Major, would have been the ultimate statement of the Julio-Claudian dynasty. While the known cameo shows Augustus as the ruler of the world, a larger version might have depicted his actual deification, his ascent to join the gods in Olympus, witnessed by the entire imperial family. Or perhaps it celebrated the military triumphs of his successor, Tiberius, carving in stone the narrative of an unbroken and divinely blessed line of emperors. The sheer skill required to create such a piece would have made it priceless even in its own time, an object of veneration passed down from one ruler to the next. Its trail grows warm with the most unlikely of emperors, the eccentric and controversial Elagabalus. He was a ruler who flaunted tradition and surrounded himself with exotic and precious objects from across the empire. It is easy to imagine this lost Gemma, a symbol of the old regime, catching his eye and being taken into his personal collection within the palace. From there, its fate is a mystery tied to the empire's collapse. When the barbarian invasions reached their peak and Rome was sacked, the palace treasures were the first targets. A piece of such size and weight would have been a prime target for looters. But its hardstone nature also presents a grim possibility. A looter with no appreciation for art, seeing only the valuable gold frame, might have shattered the colossal cameo to get at the metal more easily. The fragments, still beautifully carved, could have been scattered, some ground into powder for perceived medicinal value, others pocketed as simple, pretty stones. Yet another, more hopeful, theory suggests it was part of a larger treasure hoard hastily buried by a loyalist during a crisis, hidden in a cellar or a garden, its location lost when its protector fell. This means the remnants of the greatest cameo ever carved could still be waiting, a collection of shattered history buried beneath the modern streets of Rome, each piece a fragment of a lost imperial dream. He was the emperor who stitched the empire back together. Aurelian earned the title Restorer of the World through sheer force of will and military genius. In just 5 short years, he crushed separatist states in both the West and the East, pulling the fractured Roman world from the brink of collapse. His most famous victory was over the brilliant Queen Zenobia of Palmyra, a woman who had carved out her own empire in the East. After her defeat, legend suggests she presented Aurelian with a magnificent crown, a masterpiece of Eastern craftsmanship that may have symbolized his newfound dominance over the entire Roman world. This was not just a piece of jewelry, it was a trophy representing his impossible success. Then, in the year 275, at the very height of his power, it all ended. Aurelian was assassinated in a petty conspiracy, not by ambitious rivals, but by his own frightened junior officers, who had been misled into fearing for their own lives. His death plunged the empire back into the chaos he had just quelled, and his crown, that potent symbol of a restored empire, vanished without a trace. So where did it go in the frantic aftermath of his murder? His loyal senior officers, enraged by the betrayal, hunted down and executed the conspirators. Is it possible that one of these loyalists, seeking to protect the emperor's legacy, took the crown and hid it, intending to present it to a worthy successor? Or did the chaos of the moment allow the crown to be snatched up as simple plunder by one of the conspirators before they were caught? If so, it could have been hastily buried to hide the evidence, only for its owner to be killed before they could retrieve it. The idea of Aurelian's crown, a gift from a conquered queen, lying in an unmarked hole near the site of his assassination, is a powerful one. It would be the ultimate irony, a symbol of reunification lost to the very instability its owner had conquered. To find it would be to recover the personal emblem of the man who briefly held the shattering pieces of Rome together in his hands. The secrets of the Roman Empire were not always buried in distant deserts or deep rivers. Some of its most explosive truths were guarded just outside the city walls, within the formidable barracks of the Praetorian Guard. These elite soldiers were far more than a personal security detail. They were the shadow power behind the throne, the ultimate kingmakers who could raise an emperor to power or tear him down with a blade. Their headquarters, the Castra Praetoria, was a fortress of intrigue, and it is here we search for a treasure not of gold, but of devastating information. Imagine a hidden archive, a sealed chamber containing the Guard's most dangerous records. This would not be the official, polished history approved by the Senate, but the raw, unfiltered truth. It could hold the original assassination orders for emperors like Caligula and Commodus, signed by the very men sworn to protect them. There might be incriminating letters detailing secret plots, lists of informants who spied on the aristocracy, and private dossiers chronicling the real vices and madness of emperors that later historians would whitewash or exaggerate. This was the ultimate leverage, the blackmail that kept the Guard powerful for centuries. Then came Emperor Constantine. After his victory at the Milvian Bridge, he made a decisive move to break their power forever. He disbanded the Praetorian Guard and systematically dismantled their fortress. In that moment of chaos and dissolution, what happened to their archive? The most likely scenario is that the Guardsmen themselves destroyed it, burning piles of scrolls and papyri to protect themselves and their patrons from retribution. But is it possible that a savvy prefect, seeing the end coming, ordered the most sensitive documents to be hidden instead? The Castra Praetoria's ruins are still there, incorporated into the walls of Rome. Its underground structures, its sewers, and its hidden strongrooms have never been fully excavated. A sealed vault, forgotten for 17 centuries, could still exist beneath the modern city, holding the unsanitized history of Rome's most turbulent and violent years. To find it would be to read the empire's deepest secrets, written not by the victors, but by the men who held the knives. Cleopatra's personal wealth reached far beyond a single pearl. She controlled one of the ancient world's most exclusive sources of color and power, the legendary emerald mines of Egypt. These were not just any mines, they were the primary source of emeralds for the entire Mediterranean for centuries, a monopoly that filled the Ptolemaic treasuries and adorned the queen herself with stones of unmatched green fire. The location, somewhere in the harsh eastern desert between the Nile and the Red Sea, was a state secret of immense value. After her defeat, the Romans naturally seized this lucrative asset, continuing operations for their own profit. Yet, as the empire's grip on distant provinces loosened, the precise whereabouts of the most productive shafts faded from memory, swallowed by the desert sands. Modern archaeologists have narrowed the search to the Sikate-Zabara region, a barren and rugged landscape where the ruins of ancient mining settlements and temples to the goddess Isis have been found. Here, the evidence of Roman activity is clear, but the true prize remains hidden. The Romans were masters of resource management and security. Is it possible that, facing local unrest or an impending withdrawal, they made a strategic decision to conceal their richest vein? They could have collapsed a tunnel entrance, camouflaging it so perfectly that it blended seamlessly into the surrounding mountains. Within that sealed chamber, the walls might still glitter with untouched emerald-bearing rock, or perhaps even a stockpile of rough, unpolished stones, sorted and bagged for a journey to Rome that never happened. Finding such a cache would be more than a gemological triumph. It would be a direct line to the mineral heart of Cleopatra's kingdom, a hidden trove of green treasure waiting for the desert to finally give up its secret. The Roman Empire nearly tore itself apart during the crisis of the 3rd century. For 50 brutal years, the realm was consumed by civil war, as rival generals fought for the throne while barbarian armies smashed through the frontiers. The economy collapsed, with inflation rendering the currency nearly worthless. In this world of fire and chaos, the safest place for a family's wealth was not a bank or a temple, but a hole in the ground. All across the empire, from the villas of Britain to the farms of Gaul, terrified citizens made desperate decisions. They gathered their most precious belongings, the savings of generations, and buried them in secret locations, fully intending to return when the world grew stable again. But for countless individuals, that day never came. They were killed in the fighting, enslaved by invaders, or simply forced to flee so far from home that they could never find their way back. These personal treasures were left to the earth, creating a hidden, dispersed fortune of staggering scale. We are not just talking about jars full of debased coins. These hoards contained the real, tangible wealth of the Roman world. Imagine heavy gold bars, stamped with an emperor's face that no longer held power. Picture exquisite family silver, platters and goblets engraved with scenes of peaceful domestic life that had suddenly vanished. There would be fine jewelry, signet rings that once sealed important documents, and golden torques that spoke of status and lineage. Each buried cache tells a heartbreaking story of a life interrupted, a family's hope sealed in a pot and given to the soil. We know these hoards are real because we still find them. The Suso treasure is a perfect example, a magnificent collection of 14 pieces of solid silver tableware from the 4th century, discovered in modern-day Hungary. This was the portable wealth of an incredibly wealthy family, perhaps a high-ranking official or a landowner, who hid it during a time of extreme danger. The craftsmanship is breathtaking, featuring intricate hunting scenes and mythological figures. Its discovery proves that these legendary burials are not just folklore, they are historical fact. And if one could survive, how many thousands more are still out there, waiting? They lie under modern farmlands, beneath the foundations of expanding cities, and in the quiet woods that were once the sites of bustling Roman villas. Every time a farmer plows a field or a construction crew breaks ground, there is a chance they might disturb a piece of lead or a broken pot, the final guardian of a fortune lost to time. These hidden hoards are the private, silent legacy of an empire in its death throes, a collective inheritance scattered beneath our feet. The legions of Julian the Apostate marched east with a king's ransom in their baggage trains. This was no ordinary military campaign. It was a massive invasion of the Sasanian Persian Empire, and it required a fortune to function. An army of tens of thousands needed payment, and its vast supply lines demanded constant purchases of food, fodder, and equipment. The solution was a mobile treasury, a colossal shipment of gold Silidi coins, freshly minted and packed into sturdy chests. These were not the debased coins of a weaker era. These were the pure gold currency of a restored empire, each one representing a significant amount of a soldier's pay. Julian's ambition was to emulate the conquests of earlier emperors like Trajan, but his grand invasion ended not in triumph, but in mystery and death. During a chaotic skirmish, the emperor was mortally wounded, struck down by a spear. The leaderless army, deep in hostile territory and harassed by Persian forces, was forced into a desperate, humiliating retreat. In the ensuing panic and disorder, the immense treasury simply vanished from all historical accounts. So what happened to a fortune in gold, enough to bankroll an entire campaign? The most straightforward theory is that the Persians captured it. They were the victors on the field, and seizing the enemy's war chest was a standard prize of war. If this happened, the Silidi would have been melted down, the coins losing their Roman identity to become part of the vast Persian royal treasury. Yet ancient Persian sources make no definitive mention of such a capture, leaving room for doubt. Another possibility is that Roman officers, in a desperate act of preservation, made a split-second decision to hide the treasure. Facing a chaotic retreat and unable to transport the heavy chests quickly, they could have chosen a secluded spot, perhaps a cave, a dry well, or a hastily dug pit in the desert, burying the gold with the intention of returning with a stronger force to reclaim it. The officers who knew the location may have died on the difficult journey home, taking the secret with them to their graves. A third, more dramatic fate involves the treasury being lost during the crossing of a great river, like the Tigris. If a wagon carrying the gold foundered or was abandoned in the rush to escape, the heavy chests would have sunk immediately, buried forever under shifting river's silt. The potential scale of this hoard is almost beyond comprehension. We are talking about a find that could easily number in the hundreds of thousands of pristine gold coins. Its discovery would not merely be a treasure hunter's dream, it would be one of the largest numismatic hauls in history, a frozen moment of imperial ambition and military catastrophe, all contained within a single, lost fortune. The Roman Empire was not just governed by armies and emperors, but by information. In a portico near the Pantheon, a map of the entire known world was carved not on fragile papyrus, but into solid marble. This was the map of Agrippa, a monumental project commissioned by Augustus' right-hand man, Marcus Vipsanius Agrippa. Imagine a vast wall, covered in a detailed, physical representation of every province, every major road, every river, and every city from the misty shores of Britain to the deserts of Egypt. This was the ultimate administrative tool, a public declaration that Rome did not just rule these lands, it had measured and catalogued them down to the last mile. For a citizen or a visiting diplomat to stand before it was to understand the sheer, breathtaking scale of Roman power, made permanent in stone. While we have fragments of a later version, the Severan marble plan, Agrippa's original, pioneering map is completely lost to us. So what happens to a giant marble map when it is no longer needed? The most likely fate is recycling. Over centuries, the marble slabs were probably pried from the wall and broken up for use as building material, or simply thrown into a lime kiln to be burned into mortar. Their priceless geographic data erased for mundane construction. Yet the possibility remains that some sections escaped this fate. Could large pieces have been dumped into an ancient landfill, buried under what is now modern Rome, waiting for a subway dig or a foundation trench to reveal a chunk of marble etched with the coastline of Gaul or the course of the Danube? Another tantalizing theory points to the Tiber River. Throughout history, the riverbanks have been dumping grounds for statues, altars, and architectural fragments. Is it possible that sections of the Mappa were pushed into the water, either to clear space or as simple refuse, now lying buried under centuries of silt? Finding even a single, sizable fragment would be a historical earthquake. It would give us the Roman names for places whose locations we can only guess at, reveal the exact path of lost roads, and show us the world exactly as Agrippa and Augustus saw it. This would not be a treasure of gold, but a treasure of knowledge, a single piece of a stone puzzle that once defined the entire world. The relentless wars along the Danube forged a philosopher king into a hardened soldier. Emperor Marcus Aurelius spent the better part of his reign battling the fierce confederations of the Quadi and the Marcomanni, a brutal conflict that tested the very limits of Roman endurance. While he penned his profound meditations by candlelight, his legions fought a grinding war of attrition in the mud and forests of the frontier. Ancient historians drop tantalizing hints about the immense wealth that flowed during these struggles, vast treasures paid out by Rome as tribute to buy temporary peace, and equally vast spoils captured when the legions finally broke through. This was not the clean conquest of Trajan's day, but a messy, back-and-forth struggle where fortunes could change with the seasons. The potential for a lost hoard here is immense. Picture a Marcomannic king, his people forced to retreat before an advancing Roman column. He possesses a royal treasure, a collection of gold torques, silver coins extracted from Rome itself, and raw amber from the Baltic. Unable to carry it all, he orders his most loyal warriors to bury the hoard in a sacred grove or beneath a distinctive rock formation, a secret meant to be reclaimed after the danger has passed. But what if that king fell in the next battle, or his entire warband was scattered? The knowledge of that hiding place would die with them. Alternatively, consider a Roman war chest. A legion on the move, tasked with paying auxiliary troops or bribing local chieftains, might have been ambushed while transporting its pay. The commander, facing capture, could have made the desperate decision to bury the heavy chests of gold and silver coins, hoping to deny the enemy the funds and recover it later. The chaos of the campaign, however, might have ensured that no one who knew the location survived to return. This means the treasure of the Marcomannic Wars is a ghost, its possible location stretching for hundreds of miles along the Danube frontier, from the dense woodlands of southern Germany to the Great Plains of Hungary. It is a prize born from the friction between two worlds, a tangible piece of the struggle that consumed a philosopher-emperor, still lying in the earth where a terrified king or a desperate soldier left it. The sheer scale of Roman logistics becomes tangible not in a buried chest, but in a single, legendary vessel. We are hunting for the Isis, A grain ship so immense its description by the writer Lucian sounds more like myth than maritime history. He called it a floating palace, a leviathan of the Mediterranean that made regular voyages from the breadbasket of Egypt to the hungry mouth of Rome. While it carried no chests of imperial gold, its cargo holds were a different kind of treasure entirely, a perfect cross-section of the empire's daily life and long-distance trade. Imagine the sheer volume of Egyptian grain, enough to feed thousands of Roman families for weeks, now preserved as a solidified mass in the deep. Alongside it would be bundled rolls of fresh papyrus, the very paper of the ancient world, potentially still legible if preserved in the right conditions. But the true marvel would be the exotic goods from the east, spices like pepper and cinnamon, precious incense, and perhaps even bolts of Chinese silk, all destined for the markets of the capital. Finding the Isis would be like opening a time capsule of Roman commerce, a snapshot of the entire supply chain frozen at the moment of its sinking. So where did this giant of the sea meet its end? The most likely scenario places its wreck somewhere along the well-traveled but perilous route between Alexandria and the port of Ostia. A sudden Mediterranean storm, a hidden reef near Sicily, or a catastrophic fire on board could have sent the Isis to the bottom in a matter of hours. Its immense size, however, offers a unique advantage for discovery. A ship of that scale would have left a substantial debris field, and its unique construction would stand out on sonar scans from the countless smaller wrecks that littered the seafloor. Modern underwater archaeology could reconstruct its entire voyage, from the types of food the crew ate to the personal belongings they carried, telling the story not of emperors and legions, but of the sailors and merchants who kept the empire alive. To discover the Isis would be to find the beating commercial heart of Rome, still resting in the silent, dark depths. Deep within the Roman Senate, a golden gleam once embodied the empire's divine right to rule. This was the missing gold statue of Victory, a sacred figure that witnessed the rise and fall of emperors for centuries. Senators would make offerings of wine and incense at its base before crucial debates, seeking the goddess's favor for their decisions. It was far more than a beautiful sculpture. It was the spiritual anchor of the state itself, a tangible presence that connected political action to divine will. But as the empire converted to Christianity, this powerful pagan symbol became a target. In the 4th century, Emperor Constantius II, a devout Christian, ordered the altar removed from before the statue. This was the first major blow, a stripping of its religious function. Later emperors, like Gratian, went further, confiscating the revenues that funded its upkeep and rituals. The statue itself, a massive and incredibly valuable object of solid gold, suddenly became a dangerous emblem of the old faith. So what was its ultimate fate? The most pragmatic explanation is that it was ordered melted down. The gold would have been an irresistible asset for an empire often strapped for cash, converted into coins to pay soldiers or fund building projects. Yet, the historical record is silent on such a definitive act, leaving room for other, more clandestine possibilities. Could a group of traditionalist senators, heartbroken by the loss of their traditions, have orchestrated its theft? They might have smuggled the heavy statue out of the city under cover of night, hiding it in a country villa or a secret shrine, hoping for a pagan restoration that never came. Another theory suggests it was secretly shipped to a remaining pagan stronghold, perhaps in the northern provinces or even to a sympathetic ally outside the empire, its journey lost to history. To find this golden victory would be to touch the very heart of Rome's great religious transformation, a conflict between the old gods and the new that played out not just in sermons, but in the silent disappearance of a sacred idol from its most hallowed political chamber. The destruction of Vesuvius consumed not only lives but entire libraries of thought, yet one of the greatest minds lost that day, Pliny the Elder, may have left his most precious collection behind. His death at Stabii while attempting a rescue by sea is a famous tragedy, but the fate of his library is an enduring mystery. This was no ordinary collection, it was the working archive behind his monumental natural history, a sprawling encyclopedia of everything the Roman world knew about science, art, and nature. He supposedly read and excerpted from 2,000 different scrolls to compile it. Where did he keep such a vast treasury of knowledge? His primary residence was near Misenum, where he commanded the fleet, but his family's roots and a substantial estate were in Comum, modern-day Como, on the serene shores of the Italian lakes. It is here, away from the volcanic fury that claimed him, that his library most likely resided. Imagine a private villa, its walls lined with wooden cases called capses, each one holding dozens of precious papyrus scrolls. This would have been his personal research center, a place where he could write and compile his life's work in peace. The eruption in 79 would have sent shockwaves through the region, prompting those who remained to secure their most valued possessions. Could loyal servants or family members have sealed off a library wing, protecting the scrolls from both looters and the elements behind a hastily constructed false wall? The volcanic ash that buried Pompeii and Herculaneum did not reach Como, meaning any villa there would have decayed naturally over time, its contents potentially preserved in a collapsed but sealed environment. The real prize would not just be the scrolls themselves, but the author's own notes. We have the published version of the natural history, but the original scrolls would contain his marginalia, his discarded ideas, his first-hand observations that never made the final edit. They would show us the man at work, his thought process unfiltered. Finding Pliny's library would be like discovering the raw footage behind a legendary film, offering unedited, priceless insights into how one man attempted to catalog the entire known world. The fury of Boudica's revolt left entire cities as smoking ruins, but the wealth she plundered did not simply vanish with her defeat. After her final, catastrophic battle against the Romans, the bulk of the treasure looted from Roman settlements like Londinium and Verulamium was never officially accounted for. The victorious legions likely recovered only a small fraction of the hoard, leaving a fortune in temple offerings, imperial statues, and the personal wealth of Roman citizens unaccounted for. The Iceni and their allies, facing annihilation, would have made a desperate, final decision. Rather than let their hard-won spoils fall back into Roman hands, they would have hidden it, burying their vengeance deep in the earth of their East Anglian homeland. This region, with its dense forests, ancient trackways, and sacred boglands, offered countless possibilities for a swift and secret burial. A chieftain might have chosen a site marked by a distinctive, gnarled oak tree, long since returned to the soil. Another band could have waded into the cold, dark waters of a fen, dropping heavy sacks of silver denarii into the peat, where they sank without a trace. The potential for discovery here is not just theoretical. Modern metal detecting technology has already proven the land's capacity to safeguard such secrets. The spectacular Hoxne hoard, discovered in Suffolk in the early 1990s, contained over 15,000 gold and silver coins, along with exquisite jewelry and silver tableware, all buried by a wealthy Roman family during a period of unrest. It stands as a glittering testament to the fact that these treasures are real, and they are still here. If a hoard of that magnitude could survive for over a millennium, what might remain of Boudica's legendary plunder? The answer could lie in any unplowed field, any undisturbed patch of woodland, waiting for a faint electronic signal to announce the rediscovery of a queen's final, defiant act. Nero's legacy holds a dark legend of a mirror not for vanity, but for spectacle. The story claims he commissioned a massive disk of obsidian or polished silver, a technological marvel for its time, positioned to give him a panoramic view of the Great Fire of Rome. As the city burned, the emperor supposedly watched, entranced by the destructive beauty reflected back at him. Whether this tale is truth or slander, the concept of such an object is chillingly plausible for a ruler known for his theatrical excess. If it existed, its fate after Nero's downfall and damnation of memory is a compelling mystery. His successors were desperate to erase his legacy, and a mirror so intrinsically linked to his greatest shame would have been a prime target for destruction. It could have been smashed into 1,000 glittering shards, its metal melted down and recast. Yet looters during the chaotic year of the Four Emperors might have seen only its immense material value, smuggling it away to be hidden or sold. The most tantalizing possibility, however, lies within the sprawling, unfinished ruins of his personal pleasure palace, the Domus Aurea. This golden house was so vast that sections of it were buried and built over by later emperors, effectively creating a sealed time capsule. Archaeologists are still uncovering new rooms and passages deep within its foundations. Is it possible the fabled mirror was walled up in a forgotten chamber, its dark surface waiting in the silence to capture a beam of light for the first time in nearly 2,000 years? To find it would be to stare into an object that reflects one of history's most infamous nights. Lake Nemi holds a secret just a few miles from Rome, a pair of sunken palaces built not on land, but for the water. The Emperor Caligula ordered the construction of two immense pleasure barges, engineering marvels that were essentially floating villas. These were not simple boats, they were monuments to his power and his eccentricity, complete with marble columns, intricate mosaic floors, and sophisticated plumbing systems that provided running water and heated baths. Their scale was staggering, with the larger barge stretching over 240 feet long. After his assassination, the Roman Senate, eager to erase his memory, ordered these symbols of excess to be stripped and scuttled, sending them to the bottom of the volcanic lake. For centuries, they were little more than a local legend, ghostly shapes glimpsed by fishermen in the clear water. Then, in a dramatic engineering feat in the 1930s, the Italian government ordered most of Lake Nemi to be drained. The two ancient hulls were revealed, sitting in the mud, a breathtaking sight that confirmed the ancient stories. They were recovered and placed in a museum, but tragically, that museum was destroyed during the Second World War, and the ships were lost to fire. But the story does not end there. The draining and recovery effort was rushed, a product of its time focused on the grand hulls themselves. Countless smaller artifacts, the priceless contents of these floating palaces, were almost certainly left behind on the lakebed. When the waters returned, they covered a scattered treasure trove. Imagine a bronze fitting shaped like a wolf's head, a piece of a wolf's head that once adorned a throne. Picture a fragment of a mosaic, its colored stones still vibrant, depicting a scene from mythology. There could be delicate glassware, coins stamped with Caligula's profile, or pieces of the elaborate marble statuary that decorated the decks. The potential for modern archaeology is immense. Today, we have technology the 1930s lacked: precise underwater metal detectors, sediment sifting vacuums, and detailed sonar mapping could systematically survey the remaining lakebed sediment. A careful, scientific excavation of Lake Nemi's depths could recover these lost pieces of the puzzle. Each small find would be a direct window into the most opulent and bizarre court in Roman history, telling us not just about the ships, but about the man who commanded them built. What extravagant secrets still lie hidden in the dark silt of that quiet lake? The legend of the Ninth Legion endures as one of Rome's most haunting military mysteries. A full legion, known as Legio Nona Hispana, vanished from the historical record in the 2nd century. One compelling theory suggests they marched north from their fortress at York into the misty highlands of Caledonia and were simply never seen again. Ambushed and annihilated by fierce local tribes, the entire fighting force of over 5,000 men could have been wiped out in a single, catastrophic engagement. With them would have disappeared the legion's pay chest, a heavily guarded strongbox containing the life savings of thousands of soldiers. Imagine the sheer volume of coinage required to pay a legion for months, perhaps even a year. We are talking about thousands of heavy gold ore and tens of thousands of silver denarii, a fortune in precious metal that represented the hopes, dreams, and labors of an entire community of fighting men. This was not just state money, it was the cash for a soldier's retirement, a letter home to his family, or a drink in a distant outpost tavern. The loss of such a chest would have been a significant financial blow, but its modern discovery would be priceless. Finding this specific hoard would do more than make someone rich. It would crack a historical cold case wide open. The coins themselves would be evidence. Their mint dates would tell us the last year the Legion was definitely active and funded. The location of the find, perhaps scattered on a battlefield or hidden in a hurried defensive position, would paint a vivid picture of their final moments. Was the chest buried by a quartermaster in a desperate attempt to save it, only for him to fall in the ensuing fight? Or was it seized as the ultimate trophy by victorious tribes, who may have hidden it in a sacred place, only to lose the knowledge of its location in the generations that followed? The fate of the Ninth Legion's pay is locked in the soil of northern Britain, a metallic key waiting to unlock a mystery that has captivated historians for centuries. The Grand Mausoleum of Augustus still stands in Rome, a silent, circular tomb meant to house an entire dynasty. Yet within that vast imperial crypt, a poignant absence remains. The emperor's chosen heirs, his beloved grandsons Gaius and Lucius Caesar, died tragically young, their potential extinguished before they could ever wear the purple. While their names are remembered, their physical remains, their ashes sealed in ornate urns, are not definitively located inside the family tomb. This leads to a compelling possibility. Could the grief-stricken Augustus have commissioned a separate, secret burial for them? A private, lavishly appointed tomb fit for the emperor's Rome never had, hidden away from public view to protect their sanctity, or perhaps to enshrine a legacy too painful to display. Such a tomb would not have been empty. To honor these young men, their grandfather would have filled it with treasures worthy of future Caesars. Imagine the grave goods, not just golden urns, but perhaps the military decorations they would have earned, the personal jewelry they wore, and unique coins minted with their profiles, all placed in a chamber meant for eternity. Finding this lost sepulchre would do more than recover priceless artifacts. It would answer one of history's most sorrowful questions. The early death of Gaius and Lucius forced Augustus to turn to his stepson Tiberius, a dour and reluctant successor, setting the stage for the turbulent and often tragic Julio-Claudian line that followed. What would the empire have become under the rule of these golden youths? Their hidden tomb may hold no written answers, but its very discovery would illuminate the path not taken, a silent testament to a future that crumbled to ash long before its time. A single bolt of Chinese silk could cost its weight in gold within the markets of Rome. The demand for such exotic luxuries created a river of commerce that stretched for thousands of miles, a flow of caravans that braved deserts and mountains to deliver the east to the west. But that river was vulnerable, and piracy did not only happen at sea. In the remote, winding passes of the Balkan Mountains or the rugged highlands of Anatolia, a treasure of staggering scale could be waiting. Picture not a military chest, but a merchant's dream, the entire cargo of a massive Silk Road caravan. This was a fortune in portable wealth, bales of shimmering silk that felt like woven air, sacks of pungent spices like pepper and cinnamon that could mask the taste of aging meat, and leather pouches filled with uncut gemstones from Indian mines. This hoard represented the pure profit of an empire's appetite, the reason why merchants risked everything. The story of its loss is one of violence and desperation. A well-organized band of local brigands, knowing the caravan routes intimately, would have staged the perfect ambush. They would have chosen a narrow defile where the line of camels and wagons could not escape, rolling boulders to block the path before descending from the cliffs. The guards would have been overwhelmed in minutes. The bandits, now in possession of more wealth than they could ever have imagined, faced an immediate problem. They could not simply march into the nearest town with a train of looted camels. The sheer volume of goods was impossible to move discreetly. Their solution was a time-honored one. They would have taken what they could carry immediately, the most valuable gems and perhaps some gold coin, and then they would have hidden the rest. The bulk of the silk, the heavy spices, and the remaining chests would have been buried in a concealed spot known only to their leader. It might have been a natural cave sealed with rocks, or a deep pit dug in the floor of a secluded forest grove. They would have made meticulous mental notes of the location, swearing to return when the heat died down, but bandits live dangerous lives. Perhaps the leader fell in the next skirmish with imperial troops. Maybe the group was betrayed and scattered, or they were caught and executed, their secret dying with them. The treasure they left behind would have been forgotten, the silks slowly decaying and the spices merging with the earth, while the gems and any metal coins settled into a permanent, silent sleep. This hypothetical hoard is a ghost of globalization, a tangible piece of the economic engine that powered Rome's luxurious lifestyle, still lying in an unmarked grave along a road that has long since faded from the map. Our journey ends not with gold, but with the original source code of Roman history itself. The final lost treasure is the missing Chronica of the Pontifex Maximus, the high priest of Rome. Each year, this official was responsible for recording every major event on a public whiteboard. From military victories and political decisions to strange omens, and natural disasters. At the end of the year, these notes were transcribed into the Annals Maximi, the Great Records, creating a continuous, year-by-year chronicle of the state. This was not just a dry list of facts. It was the foundational database from which all later historians, like Livy and Tacitus, would draw their material. To find these original scrolls would be to bypass centuries of interpretation and political spin, reading the raw, unfiltered account of how Rome saw itself. The archive was a living, breathing legal and religious record, a memory bank for a civilization. So where did this priceless repository vanish? The most logical place for its storage was within the complex of temples and state buildings in the Roman Forum, the very heart of public life. As the empire evolved and Christianity took hold, the role of the pagan Pontifex Maximus faded. The archives, once so vital, likely became an administrative relic. It is easy to imagine a pragmatic official, during a time of crisis or renovation, simply ordering a storage room filled with old scrolls to be bricked up and forgotten, its contents deemed irrelevant to the new world order. This means the complete chronicles of early Rome could still be there, hidden in a sealed chamber beneath the Forum's ancient paving stones. The potential for discovery is almost beyond comprehension. These texts would not be written in cryptic code, but in clear Latin. They could settle historical debates that have raged for centuries, confirming the exact dates of foundational events, naming key figures lost to time, and detailing the strange portents that Romans believed shaped their destiny. Finding the Chronicae would be the ultimate archaeological prize, offering us a direct line to the factual heartbeat of the empire, a chance to read its story as it was first written. From golden eagles swallowed by German forests to imperial crowns lost in Persian sands, we have wandered through a gallery of ghosts. These 30 treasures represent more than just vanished wealth. They are fragments of a lost world. Some are objects of immense power, like the lost diadem that marked the empire's final breath. Others are treasures of the mind, like the scrolls of the Palatine libraries, their lost words a silent void in our understanding. We have seen symbols of faith, like the golden menorah, and personal tragedies, like the buried savings of a family fleeing chaos. Each one, whether a queen's dissolved pearl or a legion's lost pay chest, tells a unique story of ambition, faith, fear, and the sheer scale of Roman civilization. The empire was so vast, and its history so long, that it has left behind a hidden inheritance scattered across 3 continents. These stories are not over. They are simply waiting. They wait in the cold silt of a river hiding a king's tomb, in the sunken hull of a ship at the bottom of the Mediterranean, and in the undisturbed soil beneath our modern cities. The age of discovery did not end with the last emperor. It continues every time an archaeologist's trowel scrapes against a strange piece of metal, every time a deep-sea submersible illuminates a shape on the ocean floor, and every time a farmer turns over a peculiar stone in his field. History's greatest mysteries are still out there, hidden in earth, water, and time, and they are all waiting for their story to be finished. So we turn the question over to you. Of all these legendary lost treasures, from the soul of a legion to the secret archives of the Praetorian Guard, which one would you want to find? Let us know in the comments below, and subscribe to join us on our next journey into the forgotten corners of our past.